Hmm. Good morning. Just starting here. It is actually still morning. What do you know? Let me see. Blah, blah, blah. Getting everything going. Good morning, good morning. I might do this a little bit. Just adjust my super professional setup a little bit. Super professional. As per usual. Good morning. Okay, I can't quite see. Here, let's do that way. Oh, gosh. And also, someone's sending me messages. If that's you, there's a reason I haven't answered. I'm not answering. It's because I'm here. Lovely, lovely. Good morning. All right. Here we go. Good afternoon. It's now afternoon. What do you know? Well, actually, no, noon. Good noon. Good noon. Good noon. All right. So, yeah, let's jump in, shall we? My name is Dr. Shackles. And as we will discuss later, I am using that pretty intentionally. And I am coming to you live from north of Toronto. And my pronouns are she, her, or they, them. And I am in the traditional lands of the Haudenosaunee, the Anishinaabe, the Mississauga, and the Wendake Neo-Wet'suwet'en peoples. And I wanted to, just on the wings of that land acknowledgement, these are the traditional lands of those peoples, I also wanted to recommend, especially if you are Canadian, I wanted to recommend a book called Unreconciled, if you haven't read it yet or heard it. I listened to it on Audibles, or Audible or whatever it's called. So, called Unreconciled by Jessie Wente. And this is a book that has a parallel sort of narrative based on Jessie Wente's experiences, excuse me, as a Native person raised off the reservation, or off a reservation in Canada, and also a call to action. So it's a sort of he kind of weaves in and out of those two things, where he's speaking about his experiences as well as, so yeah, part memoir and part manifesto. Unreconciled is a stirring call to arms to put truth over the flawed concept of reconciliation and to build a new, respectful relationship between the nation of Canada and Indigenous peoples. And I just realized I should move this mic over just a little. Yes, I should. Let's move the mic over. So that's something to consider if you, if it wasn't on your radar previously. Oh gosh. Now, okay, let's put the mic here. Hopefully that's not too far away. Gosh, I got a little phlegm today. Lovely. You're welcome for that. Like I said, something to consider if you, especially if you're Canadian, something to consider. It will, Jessie Wente is about the same age as I am, so, and he was raised in Toronto area, and so this is there's it's a very interesting kind of perspective, and also something that will make you think and want to do some things. So something to consider. All right, so today, very interesting. Today I wanted to talk a little bit about on being all things to all people. Because as you may have seen, and welcome back, by the way. This is like I haven't done a live office hours in several weeks because it was vacation time, So I was away on vacation, having fun, all that stuff, and so here we are. We're back, and going forward, live office hours will be bi-weekly, probably rather than weekly, just because the voice ped degree is starting, and so my time is going to get a little bit less. So today, yes. Oh, hi, Michelle. Hi to South Africa. What we're talking about today, being all things to all people. So recently, if you followed if you've been looking at my socials, you'll have noticed that I did a post at the beginning of the week, or toward the beginning of the week, just about some things that were said about my style by a colleague in a public forum, and some things that were said about the way that I present myself, and some of the things that were said, and the fact that I am in the place right now. I am in the place right now where I have folks around me whose opinion I trust and who I rely on, whose opinion matters to me. And so sometimes, I'm at the place where I'm also secure enough in what I am, how I'm presenting myself, and what I'm doing. Kate says, was this the public voice teacher forum where joy goes to die? Yes. We're probably referring to the same forum, yes. Where joy goes to die. Oh. Yeah, I mean, there are lots of teachers there, right? And lots of different, and I obviously did not appeal or do not appeal, or parts of my style do not appeal to that person, and whatever, and it is what it is. The fact that it was in a public forum and when it was quite yes, was not ideal, of course. But all I'm saying is that those things, when heard at this age and stage of life from colleagues who are not close friends and people who I rely on to sort of speak to me about things, and people who don't, someone who doesn't know me very well, who only sees what I put out publicly, that is fine. It is what it is, and it says, it says something about how I may be perceived. And so I'm at the age and stage where what this says to me is, oh, look, I am not all things to all people, and that's fine. That's fine. So I wanted to kind of, it was very interesting, some of the things, like over the top intensity and the ditzy, and also using the doctorate that's pretentious. It seems pretentious, and these are things that are part of the way that I work, and I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the reasons a little bit. I have been celebrated. I was not one of those children whose parents said that I was too much, right? I was not one of those children. Now, I did get a little bit of that from culture, and I was raised in an evangelical church, so I certainly got a little bit of that from the evangelical church and from the culture, that I was maybe a little too much, and that I was maybe a little too outgoing, a little too loud, I got a little bit of that from the church. But what that did for me, because I think I was supported in my personality, yes, I hear it. Yes, when you cater to everyone, you speak to no one. Exactly that. And so what I heard, when I heard that in the culture, it made me want to be more, right? It made me want to be even more. And so, and because I was supported and celebrated for my personality and for my extroversion, I was supported and celebrated for that within my family structure. So, my mother, who is not an extrovert, was like, who is this child? How is she so comfortable with all the people? Oh my gosh, she's a miracle baby. Where did this child come from? So rather than being told to tone it down, which many of my friends, especially friends, in the arts, and had been told by their parents, I was not told that by my parents. I was celebrated. So when I encountered that in larger cultures and in the church, it made me want to just dig in a little bit, right? It made me want to actually go a little farther. So that's a little bit about my personality too. So, however, being a woman, there have always been, there's always going to be those microaggressions. There's always going to be someone telling you that you're maybe too much, or something is, maybe I shouldn't say there always will be for everyone. I will say my experience has been that there has always been, those microaggressions. And I'm not saying it's okay. I'm just saying that I'm at the point now where I'm recognizing it. I'm like, okay, whatever. And so and also actually when I took Clifton Strength, so if you're someone who has taken the Clifton Strengths and done that, I found that woo, which is the winning others over, is like my top strength. So that's actually something I'm really, really good at, is, winning people over. Yes, Kate says, I was taught not to stick out like a sore thumb. Girls and women are always receiving this message, always. Yes, exactly. It is part of our culture. And also, Kate, as I said earlier, I was raised in an evangelical church as well. So yeah, 100%. This is the message that, I received, certainly outside of, in many, many ways. And yeah. So anyway, when I found out that like one of my top strengths is winning others over, that was also a time where and also positivity is one of my top strengths, and adaptability, and like a bunch of things like that, includer, developer, communication. So once I saw some of those things too, that really helped to solidify, oh, hi, Christy, daughter of a Southern Baptist music minister. Hi. Oh, I hear ya. I hear ya. My dad was a pastor too. So I realized, okay, these are parts of my personality, and it wasn't that I hadn't been happy with them before, but then I was like, okay, actually, I'm going to lean the crap into these. I'm going to lean right on into these, actually, So when people say, too ditzy or too blah, 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 all, whatever, over the top, too intense, I'm like, yeah, well, that's fine. Daughter of Presbyterian music minister, liberal, but still, yeah, absolutely. And then the other thing I just wanted to address too, just in terms of using the doctorate, I just want to say too, that was a very intentional, to go by Dr. Shannon Coates. Like, I do not go by Dr. Shannon Coates to any of my colleagues, to anybody. Like, the only people who call me Dr. C are undergraduate folks who in academia, when I teach undergraduate voice ped course. But it was a very intentional choice on my part to incorporate doctor into my brand, if you will. If I was in academia, I likely wouldn't use it at all, or very little. But out here in the big world, it was very intentional. And part of the reason that it was intentional, and a very fraught decision, because, I'm Canadian, and it does seem a little pretentious to use doctor. It seems a little pretentious. Like, I'm like, But, so there was, I worked through some stuff by making the choice to use doctor in my branding and making that choice. And one of the big reasons that I decided to be intentional about including that in the branding, hell yeah, you did, that's right. One of the reasons that I was intentional about that was because at the time when I was considering the branding, that was right around the same time when Dr. Jill Biden was called out in an opinion piece, if you remember. It's about June, like 2020, give or take, somewhere in 2020, when Dr. Jill Biden was called out for using her honorific in her title, and was it was just an infantilizing, terribly sexist, just horrible. And so that opinion piece, it was just so disrespectful. But anyway, so that opinion piece then, because of that, and that was in the States obviously, but because of that, there was a real call out or movement for women especially to start to use. Yes, exactly, Patty. Isn't it weird that it's only pretentious because I'm female? Exactly. And Dr. Biden, right. So there was a real movement, there like a whole bunch of Twitter threads and all that thing where for women, a call out for women who have a doctorate of whatever kind to start to use it just to represent and to go against this sort of like idea that is pretentious and to not accept infantilization or not accept that sexist rhetoric. So that was all around the same time. So that is part of the reason it was very intentional for me to use that in my branding. And so I just like, those were a couple of little things that I wanted to get out there just in the first place, is just like this, the use of doctor for me is, yes, it is a little bit fraught. I had to do a little bit of work around that to not think that I was being pretentious. And if folks think I am being pretentious, I don't care. I've done the work. I'm okay. It's fine, right? I know. So like, and also because I am working with, I'm developing courses and I'm developing, like, the voice pattern degree starts in September in 2 weeks. Oh my gosh. Because I'm doing that work and I'm working with voice teachers, I also wanted there to be that little bit of, what's the word? I don't know. I think I did write it down somewhere too. Credibility. I wanted to have that, a little bit of credibility, but also I wanted it to be like a representation thing, right? So here I am a woman, I have, I did this work, and I have, the right to claim that honorific, right? So that's all that stuff. Coming back to the actual talk, the thing that I want to talk about today. So coming back to the actual, on being all things to all people. So this phrase, all things to all people, I became all things, expertise, exactly. Thank you, Sarah. So on being all things to all people. So this phrase comes from the Bible, 1 Corinthians, I believe. I did write it down. It's Paul talking about, yes, Patty says, people of our generation and older have a difficult time with women who they deem as demanding respect. Yes, claim that honorific, thank you, yes. So all things to all people. This was used by Paul in the Bible, 1 Corinthians, talking about how he went about relating to different kinds of people and different, so I became poor, I became, this, I became that, I became this, in order to win them to Christ. So in order to bring people to become Christians. And so in our society, like this whole idea gets co-opted though, right? And I was raised with this, so like, bear with me. So I was raised in this, and the idea that we should be all things to all people if we are committed to our goals, which in especially in evangelical churches like to proselytize, right? So to bring other people to Christ. And so in that context though, so this gets, there's a whole thing, like if you want to talk about, take a look, there's a lot of stuff about what the actual context would have been and why he was saying it in that way. But what happens is we pull it out of that context of the time and we pull it into our current context, and it kind of starts to become like, we need to be all things to all people in order to accomplish our, whatever our goal is. But I just want to say, so this phrase, I became all things to all people, this was very simply and not very, this isn't, please don't take this as like, I'm like any kind of biblical scholar or anything along those lines. Please don't take it that way. But understand that Paul is talking about something very specific here, a very specific context, first of all, back in that time, but also talks about, it's about like what he believes is a life and death goal, right? So this is the stakes are very high for Paul and for that particular, again, this is all decontextualized, blah, 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 but so the stakes are very high. So what I want to say, and what I want to say is there are three big reasons why we are not supposed to be, or why it's not, why we're not all things to all people, and why that's a good thing, right? Like there are three good reasons that we are not all things to all people when we're teaching voice, or as voice teachers, or as, you know, as we, because I'm going to bring it into this context of teaching voice, but in terms of voice pedagogy. So many people with honorifics teach in this is the only right way method of Western classicalism. Your doctorate combined with your message shores up the rest of us who want to follow a different path. Thank you, Lindsay. That's beautiful. I appreciate you saying that. Yeah. So the first thing is that the reason I don't need to be all things to all people when I am, you know, on the socials, and when I'm talking about myself personally, but also, you know, feel free to respect that, but feel free to take what works for you. But the reason that I don't need to be is because you studying with me is not life or death. Like the stakes just aren't that high. Right? I don't need to get you in by hook or by crook. I don't need to convert you to what I'm doing by any means possible. Like the stakes just aren't that high. This is not about, you know, your eternal salvation, right? So that's a good thing, right? That is like, yes, do I think that I'm pretty good at what I do? And yes, do I think that a lot of people will benefit from working with me or from doing courses with me? Sure. But it's not like life or death. Stakes aren't that high. So I don't need to get you in, you know, I don't need to be all things to all people in order to get you to study with me or to work with me, right? Christy says, I will forever be grateful to my college oral skills instructor, Dr. Sean Amos, for sidelining me to explain I shouldn't laugh off my mistakes, but instead own my skills and carry myself with respect and take myself seriously in this world that so easily takes women less seriously. That conversation has stuck with me since college and made so many amazing differences in my life. Yeah, that's beautiful. Yeah, own it. Own you're awesome. Own you're awesome. So that's the first thing. Look, the stakes are just not that high for folks to study with you, for folks to, you know, to work with you, for folks to buy your products, for folks to, like, the stakes just aren't that high. Really, they aren't. And also this, you know, the pie is big. There's lots of pie. So the stakes aren't that high. So that means that I don't have to be all things to all people, right? I don't have to be. The second thing is this. I don't have what every person needs. I literally cannot be all things to all people. I don't have what every person needs, right? I don't. And that's a tricky one for someone like me to accept, because I'm like, oh, I could work with anybody. Yeah. Yes, Patty says, there used to be a great emphasis on who you studied with and who they studied with. It was pious. I love it. Yes, right? That was, and this like sort of lineage, and there's a lot of scarcity mixed into that too, because like, how do I prove that I'm good if, and how do I prove that I'm a good teacher? Well, it's because I can trace my lineage back to blah, 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 right? So yes, there's a lot of scarcity there. But we don't need to be all things to all people. I found it's also so much more powerful for me when a mentor doesn't need to work with me. Yes, it's an offer that's there to take or not. Exactly. So I don't have to, again, I don't have to get you in. And it's not teacher versus teacher. Exactly. That this isn't pie. This is like champagne. It just flows. It flows and bubbles and everybody's happy. This is champagne and there's lots of it. There's lots of champagne. So I don't, oh, hey Bruce, nice to see you in here. So I don't have to, I don't have to try to be something that everybody, wants or needs. And I don't have to try to like, again, there's this kind of weird like grasping or kind of hook by crook kind of mentality. In the Brazilian musical theater scene, there's still this mentality, their student, my technique. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think wherever people are, in whatever, in whatever discipline we are in, I think there is always going to be a shadow of that mentality, right? Like, I don't know that, we're people. So So we're always working, to kind of hopefully unpack and change. But I think there's always going to be some like leftover, and of course in some places and in some areas it's going to be greater than in others, of course. But so I don't have to be all things to all people because A, the stakes just aren't that high, and B, I can't. And that's a good thing, right? That's a good thing. People can go and get what they need from someone who's going to serve them better, or be a better fit to work with them, or be a better personality fit, or be a better teaching fit, or have some skills that I don't have. Like, that's a good thing that I'm not all things to all people. And then the third thing is that when we are authentically ourselves, so when we are, and this is all like woo-wee kind of thing, right? Like, when I'm authentic and how do I be authentic, blah, blah, blah. But when we are authentic and when we know ourselves, we understand our values, when we are authentically ourselves, we attract the people who we can work with, who are going to be the ideal clients in the sort of business world talk. So we do then attract those people. Why? Because I put out what I am and who I am. I put that out there. And then the people who don't like it, you know what? That is a wonderful filter then, right? So someone who sees me online, just use myself as an example, and sees me online and is like, ooh, too much, too intense. You know what? That's fine. What does that mean? That I'm not the right fit for them. And that's fine. That was a really nice little filter there. What's going to happen if they think, oh, well, maybe I should just do it anyway? They're going to resent me the whole time they're like taking a course with me, right? Because the whole time they're like, oh my gosh, too intense. Can this person just like calm it down a little bit? So they should trust their instincts and say, yep, a little too intense for me. I probably shouldn't work with that person. And that is a great filter then. Now there's a nice filter there for who is going to be ideal clients, right? Because I definitely gravitate towards the people in music who are clearly doing the work on their ego. Yes, I do too. Better to have a good fit than to spend 60 minutes dragging a head horse to animate. Yes, agree. So the more that I am clear about who I am, about how I want to show up in the world, about what I have to offer, about who I want to work with, the more I am clear about that, the more I allow my values to lead, the more clients, the right clients, the clients who are ideal for you, the ones who you can work with, the ones who you can truly help, truly support. Maybe help isn't my favorite, but the ones that you can truly support and really be effective, work effectively with, those are the ones who are going to be attracted to you and who are going to find you. That is, I mean, I'm out here doing my thing and someone thinks that it's too much. They're not going to work with me, and you know what? That's a good thing. Why? Because we're never going to have a good fit. It's never going to be an effective learning environment because the whole time in their head, they're resenting me for being too much. So that's fine. Go study with someone who doesn't feel like they're too much. That's totally fine, right? And then and the reverse side of that is the more that I can be as authentic as I can be and be myself and be within my, do what I do. The more people see that and they say, okay, yeah, I can get behind what this person says. Yeah, she calls herself doctor, but that's okay because she's also not like too stuffy. So let's, this may be someone I can work with. So then that is a far better attraction, or a far better recruitment, if you will, tool than if I'm trying to be all things to all people. So that's, this all gets a little bit tricky, right? Like this all gets a little bit tied up and tricky and weird and challenging when we have the stuff in us that says like who we are is like when we've internalized the idea that who we are is too much, or we've internalized the idea that the way we want to communicate is too much or not the right way, or et cetera, et cetera. So that all gets a little bit gross in there. And of course, folks who are not from the dominant culture, that also can feel very challenging. That can be very challenging to present in a way that is authentic, and then also feel like you're going against the dominant culture, or the way that you have been told that you have to be in order to fit in to the dominant culture, in order to be accepted by the dominant culture. So that is, or the historically dominant culture is maybe a better way to put that. But so that also, I just want to recognize that also, that is all tied into how we are, and this concept of being all things to all people, and especially being all things to like the dominant culture, so we can be accepted and fit in, which is not, by the way, what Paul meant. He did not mean, coming back to he did not mean fit into the dominant culture, all things to all people. That's not what he was talking about there. So just keep that in mind. So yeah, that is, I think that's where I want to maybe, tie that up. Just with the idea that the closer we are to, and let me tie one other thing into that too. So the more I understand who I am, what I like, how I like to communicate, the more I'm comfortable with that, the more I lean into that, the more I can use the things that I am, I can use the platforms that I have in the way that works the best for me. So there are folks out there who love writing and who have amazing blogs, and there are folks out there who love reading blogs. I don't mind reading blogs. That's not my favorite, but I don't mind. But there are folks out there who just have a constant Twitter, right? Just constant, and really interact on Twitter. And there are folks out there who, there are so many different ways to interact with the world, and there are so many different ways to have, to have a presence in the world if you want to. There's nothing that says that you have to. I'm just saying, to have an online presence, if you will. And one of the big reasons that I do live office hours is because this is a way that I enjoy interacting. This is the way that I enjoy getting my thoughts out there. It is, as I mentioned earlier, adaptability is one of my top Clifton strengths. In other words, I love to be here just talking. I love it. It's my favorite way to communicate. And there are lots of folks who hate it, and that is totally fine. Do the thing that really aligns with who you are and how you want to show up in the world. So again, who's going to be attracted by the way that I work? The people who I probably will work well with, right? And who's going to be attracted by incredibly thought-provoking blogs? Folks who love, that's probably going to be a great mix if you're someone who, or a great, combination. If you follow someone who has really interesting thought-provoking blogs, then that might be someone who you would love to work with, because, and again, it's a kind of filter, right? It's a kind of filter. So just that's maybe one little caveat here. Yes. Oh, that is such a good point. The opposite also is when they are told to fit in the market or do what the market says as an artist or songwriter or singer. But again, that definition is so ambiguous. That's right. It's so ambiguous, where we're told that we should do things in a specific kind of way, right? But that's the way that's worked for some people, but it isn't necessarily going to work for you, right? So again, and this totally aligns with being an artist as well, and how we present ourselves to the world as an artist, and what our values are, what our goals are as artists as well. And as we're working with if we happen to be working with folks who are artists, in that sense, who want to get their art out there. Let me just take a little read here. Several students that have been with me for many years, to send them on to someone else, but I've been learning from so many other teachers smarter than me, like you, integrating those tools. So I tend to push against that grain of moving the student on just so they can have a new experience, but I don't discourage it. They want to either. Oh, yeah, that is a really interesting thought, Bruce. I'm glad you put that question in there. So Bruce is just saying, as we work with students over the long term, sometimes Yeah, Patty says this is an abundance mindset. There's enough for me and for them. There's a market for every teacher. Yes. And Bruce is just saying, like, I tend to push against that grain of moving the student on so that they can have a new experience when they've worked with me for quite a long time, right? But yeah, and you don't want to discourage them from moving on either. Yeah, and this is something I think that's pretty particular to independent voice teachers, I think, because often we'll start teaching someone very young, right? They could be 7 or 8, or like they could be very young and work with us for quite a long time, and then maybe come back after they go, maybe they go to a university and they do something in university, they maybe come back. Or maybe they feel like they should go to someone else in order to get a different perspective, or maybe they want to do some audition coaching or something along those lines. I think, I think so long as we're honest with ourselves, Bruce, I think that honesty is the like that self-honesty and understanding who we are. I think that is the main thing, right? So long as we're honest with ourselves and about what we are able to offer and whether or not this is a good fit. Obviously, it's been a good fit for however many years. And then I also think that, and I wish I had done more of that, right? I wish I had, when I was teaching more, I wish I had done more. I kind of, when I had my sort of traditional voice studio, I wish I had done more of this, where, and I did a little, but not as much as I would have liked. Looking back, not as much as I could have, and that I think would have been, even better. And also, now we have the option to like Zoom people in from all over the place, right? Like that wasn't necessarily, we didn't really think about it that way before. But I think too, it is wonderful for us to have an idea of like who are some of my colleagues I can tap into for specific things. So when I was working with young singers who were doing contemporary idioms exams, so they were learning some jazz pieces. Y'all, I am not a jazz teacher. In any stretch of the imagination, am I a jazz teacher? I should not be working on jazz rep with you. So what did I do? I pulled in Nikki Loney, whose expertise is in jazz and who has a jazz degree, right? And who has performed. So I pulled her in to come and coach the singers who are working on their jazz rep. Now, these are young singers. These were not singers who wanted to go into jazz. Those folks I would 100% send on to someone else. But these were young singers who were doing jazz as part of, they did music theater and pop and, lots of different kinds of styles. So I pulled in folks to help with that, right? I also would send folks to another teacher to do like a mock exam, or to do audition prep, or to prep a specific role. So if I haven't done the role, then I'm very happy to send for them to get some coaching with the folks who have done the roles. Like, go do it with the folks who've done the roles, right? And to me, that feels amazing. Like, I don't know about just a new experience. I'm not sure that's necessarily, I don't know. But if you have something specific where you're like, yeah, I am not all things to all students here, but I've got colleagues. You know what else that does? This is something that's really lovely. Yeah, it's abundance, right? But you know what else that does? It also makes you look real fancy in the eyes of your students. Because, look, I've got a colleague who does, X, Y, Z, and I've got a colleague who does this, and this, and I've got a colleague who works on, specifically just audition prep. I've got a colleague who specifically works on choosing music theater rep for contemporary music theater rep for. I've got a couple colleagues who are awesome at this, choosing contemporary music theater rep for auditions or putting together a book. Dude, I'm not. You want to put together a book? I'm not your girl at all, right? Like, I'm not your girl. I mean, I can do a little bit of guidance, but no, I'm not your girl. You need to go talk to someone who can do that. And then I look super fancy because I'm like, yeah, my colleague, Amanda down at Sing City Vocals, you should go talk to her. She's amazing, right? Chrissy says, oftentimes our students recognize not just our specific abilities, but also our access, yes, to skilled music community, and thereby granting them access to our greater people resources and physical resources. Yes, I love that. We need to get over our fear of losing students. Yes, we are fancy. Exactly. Thanks for asking that, Bruce. This is exactly why I opened my studio, a built-in community of musicians with varying expertise. Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, there are just so many, there are so many things that we're not necessarily, like we're not meant to be all things to all people. And that's a good thing. That's a good thing. So yeah. Okay, good. I will leave it there for today. Have a terrific weekend. If you're watching on the replay, I hope some of this resonates. Singers. And yeah, have a great weekend. Happy teaching. Happy not being all things to all people. Happy being authentic and trusting that that is going to bring the that will bring the singers and the folks into your orbit who are going to be awesome for you to work with. Take good care. Yeah, thanks, Christy. I love it.